For those of you who don't know me, my name is Craig Uplinger, and I'm a teacher, not a preacher. But I'm going to try today.
I make the difference.
Thank you, Bill. It does make me feel better that I'm in front of friends. I want to begin today by thanking Vincent. Once again, he has shown his belief in me that I have something to offer you. And this is the second time on Dr. King. I'm going to have to back and forth with my glasses here. And I want to kind of shake out my insecurities by being transparent about what I'm insecure about today. A few things. It's always difficult, for me anyways, to give some meaning to God's Word. That's a difficult thing for me, but today it's doubly hard because I have to present a sermon of Dr. King's. Imagine this, you go to a basketball clinic, you're the basketball players and I'm the coach, and I have to demonstrate LeBron James' greatest dunks. That's sort of what I feel like today. I'm presenting Dr. King's words, and I can't do that. I can't even do a dramatic reading of it. So what I've had to do is I've had to reframe it and then put in my own voice. But if you look at the outline, it's true to that. He essentially broke his sermon that day into those 4 parts. So in my voice, I'm going to give the best representation of his message today. The second insecurity is that the name of the sermon is Loving Your Enemies. And just a full confession here, I have been an A1 top grade hater in my life. I have on many occasions lined my enemies up and hurled really strong words at them. And so I offer this with no judgment, trust me. Maybe at myself, but not at you. The third is the idea of tension. And this is a difficult one. The words of Dr. King and the words that I offer after will likely cause you some tension. And that's kind of by design. And it's out of this idea. In a letter from Birmingham jail, Dr. King said, "I am not afraid of tension. There is a type of constructive tension that is necessary for growth." And I think the best way to honor Dr. King, who everywhere he went and every time he spoke caused tension, if we're going to honor and celebrate him today and tomorrow, there ought to be a little tension. So, fair warning ahead of time, that's by design. Because in the end, our purpose here today is growth. Now, before this, you see the date there, November 17th, 1957. Let me offer a little historical context, and maybe to the young people in the back, you can take notes. That just felt good to say. Just made me in my comfort zone here. You don't have to take notes. But on November 17, 1957, he gave this at the Dexter Avenue Baptist Church in Montgomery, Alabama. In the 3 years previous, we had had the Brown versus Board of Education decision, which said segregation is inherently unequal. It has no place in our Constitution. And therefore, segregation was dead, right? But the following year, in 1955, there was a second Brown decision, Brown 2, and it said, that has to be carried out with all deliberate speed. Deliberate is slow. So, as he spoke here and for years after, segregation was in place. And we still had literacy tests and poll taxes. We still had anti-miscegenation laws, which made interracial marriage illegal in 15 states. And interracial children, evidence of a crime. 1955, a young man named Emmett Till came from Chicago to visit his cousins, and he whistled at a white woman. And within a day, he was brutally disfigured and at the bottom of a river. And the men that did that to him were found not guilty with less than an hour's deliberation by an all-white jury. And those men later gave an interview in a magazine, essentially said they did it. Also in December of 1955, Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat in a bus, and it began a year-long bus boycott, which overturned that segregation in Montgomery, Alabama. And in the course of that, a 26-year-old pastor named Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Became known to our nation. In that protest, though, he also had his house bombed while his wife and children were in it. And 1957 was also the year that he tried to integrate schools in Little Rock, Arkansas. And the Little Rock Nine and federal troops had to come in to calm everything. And in 1957, Dr. King wrote this particular sermon from prison. He was in prison in Georgia for some of the protests he had done. So what you're going to hear, part of what you're going to hear today, was written in prison by Dr. King. So we'll start today where he started. Matthew 5:43. And after I read this, I want to do a quick prayer, and then we'll get into his sermon. Matthew 5:43 through 45. You have heard that it was said, you shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I say to you, love your enemies, bless those who curse you, do good to those who hate you, and pray for those who spitefully use and persecute you, that you may be children of your Father in heaven. If we could pray. Lord, clear us out today. Just clear us out. Let us speak and receive what you want to be heard today. And when those words are spoken, and when we open ourselves to receive them, let us not run from you as we stand and sit here. Let us grow. Let us become closer to you. Let us leave this place different. Let us leave this place with courage. For our challenges today are not the challenges of those people that Dr. King spoke to in the Dexter Avenue Baptist Church. We will make it home today. We will not face the violence they faced. Our children are more secure. Our lives in a better place, but we have our challenges nonetheless. And let these words speak to us in our present challenge and our present need for courage. In your name we pray. Amen. Love your enemies. There is probably no commandment that Jesus ever gave that is harder to carry out than that. Some say it's impossible. Some even would agree with the philosopher Nietzsche. Nietzsche used that commandment, love your enemies, as evidence to prove that Jesus was some impractical idealist and that the Christian ethic was for the weak and the cowardly, not the strong and the courageous. But Jesus was far from an impractical idealist. Jesus was a practical realist. We should know this. Upheaval after upheaval in our modern world should show us we are traveling down a road called hate. And the ultimate destination of that road is destruction and damnation. No. Jesus is not some utopian dreamer, and his command is not some pious injunction. It wasn't an exaggeration he used to get over some point. Love your enemies is a necessity for survival in the modern world. Love is the solution to the problems of the modern world. And therefore, it is our Christian responsibility to come to understand it and try to live it out in our daily lives. So towards that end, let's ask a practical question. How do we love our enemies? Well, first, you have to develop your capacity for forgiveness. Anyone devoid of the capacity to forgive is devoid of the capacity to love. Forgiveness is power. It's always initiated by the person wronged, the person harmed, the person who suffered the injustice. The wrongdoer can request forgiveness. Think for a moment of the story of the prodigal son. The son could walk down the dusty road with his heart palpitating, waiting for his father's forgiveness, but it was only the father on the porch that could invite him in and pour the warm waters of forgiveness over him. And forgiveness is not weakness. Forgiveness is not ignoring the wrong. It's not placing a false label on the evil act. Rather, it is refusing to let the evil act be a barrier to relationship. Forgiveness lifts burden. Forgiveness cancels debt. Forgiveness creates an atmosphere of a fresh start. So when you hear these two sayings about forgiveness, I will forgive you, but I won't forget what you've done. Or I will forgive you, but I want no more to do with you. Remember, forgiveness means reconciliation. Without reconciliation, there is no love. And this is especially true when we have the chance to humiliate our enemy. When we have the chance to thrust the spear into the side of our defeated enemy. If you get that opportunity in your life, you must not. Instead, you must remember the example of our Master. As they crucified him on the cross and they put a criminal to his left and a criminal to his right, and they prepared the sword to stick into his side, remember what he said. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Second, we must recognize we are all schizophrenic personalities. All of us are in this persistent civil war within ourselves. We are tragically divided against ourselves. Surely, we would identify with the words of the Latin poet Ovid, who says, I see and approve the best things, but I do only the worst. Or we would identify with the Apostle Paul when he says, the good that I would do, I do not. The evil that I would not, that I do. We recognize, or we have to recognize, that there is some evil in the best of us and some good in the worst. Hate and the evil acts they produce grow out of fear, anger, pride, prejudice, ignorance, misunderstanding. When we understand this, we're able to find common ground with our enemy, and we can become less likely to hate. We realize that the evil act is not all that our enemy is, just like an evil act is not all we are. And if we have that understanding, it allows us to see our enemy in a new light. It allows us to know God's image is etched in our enemy in the same way that God's image is etched in us. And it allows us to conclude that even our enemy is not beyond the redemptive power of forgiveness. If we are going to understand how to love, we also must better understand love. Let's use the Greek. In Greek, there are three words for love. There is eros. Eros is sort of a aesthetic, romantic, even passionate love. Second, there's philia. Philia is also an intimate love that you share with friends. You love them because you like them, and they love you back. The third is agape. Agape love is the overflowing love that seeks nothing in return. Agape is the love of God in the human heart. If we can love at that level, agape love, we love men and women not because we like them, not because we approve of their ways or their acts. We love them because God loves them. We love them with our whole heart, and we love all mankind. And when we love at this level, our love, like God's love, can be redemptive and transforming. It can change circumstances, and it can even change our enemy. Now, that's the explanation for how we go about it. But we have to transition in now to the theoretical why. Even if it's possible, why should I love my enemy? Well, the first reason is fairly obvious. Returning hate for hate multiplies hate. It adds deeper darkness to a night devoid of stars. Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. Hate multiplies hate. Violence multiplies violence. Toughness multiplies toughness. And it's a descending spiral of destruction. Have we not come to such an impasse in the modern world? Hate begetting hate. Violence begetting violence. War begetting war. And we have to ask, are we ever going to break this chain of evil? This chain reaction of evil where every link is rooted in hate and fear? Or shall we work to break this chain with the only tool that has any chance for success? Love. But maybe you say, I don't want to talk about the world. Fine. Let's talk about you. Hate injures the one who hates. So if you hate, it injures you. Hate is an unchecked cancer. It corrodes the individual personality. It eats away at the vital organ of character. It destroys any sense of value or objectivity. Hate will cause the best individual to describe the beautiful as ugly and the ugly as beautiful. To recognize the false as true and the true as false. Psychology now understands that hate will divide the human personality. But our Lord taught us 2,000 years ago that love can unite the human personality and restore the soul. Love is also the only force that can transform an enemy into a friend. You cannot rid yourself of enemies by hating them, by meeting hate with hate. You cannot rid yourself of an enemy unless you rid yourself of enmity. Abraham Lincoln tried this, and he left us all a magnificent story of reconciliation. When he was campaigning for the presidency in 1860, there was this guy out there, his arch enemy, say, Edwin Stanton. And Edwin Stanton attacked Lincoln every chance he got. He mocked his physical appearance. He ridiculed him in the public eye for his views and his intelligence. He was trying everything he could to get Lincoln from being elected. But Lincoln was elected and inaugurated. And after his inauguration, he's setting up his cabinet. And he tells his advisors, I want this guy Stanton, I want him to be my Secretary of War. His advisors go, what are you, nuts? Do you not know this man, Mr. Lincoln? Have you not heard what he says? He's your enemy. He will try to sabotage your administration. And Lincoln's response was, I've looked around. I think he's the best guy for the job. So he appoints him. And he's approved, and Stanton becomes the Secretary of War during our Civil War. You know that Lincoln was assassinated. And when they announced him dead at 7:22 a.m., the man standing just above his left shoulder as he laid on that bed was Edwin Stanton. Stanton was the first to speak after the announcement of Lincoln's death, and he said, "This is one of the greatest men who have ever lived. And now he belongs to the ages." If Lincoln had returned hate with hate, Lincoln and Stanton would have went to their graves as enemies. But through the power of love, Lincoln transformed an enemy into a friend. And those two friends saw our country through our transformational war. The same spirit of love that made it possible for Lincoln to see Stanton in a good light made it possible for Lincoln to say kind words about the South during the height of tension in the Civil War. And when When he did so one day, this lady said, "Mr. Lincoln, how could you say that?" And he answered with a question. "Madam, do I not destroy my enemies when I make them my friends?" Now, as compelling as these reasons may or may not be to you, there is an even more basic reason why all of us should love our enemy. As Christians, we are expressly and explicitly commanded to do so. Love your enemies, so that you may be children of your Father, which is in heaven. We are called to this difficult task in order to realize a unique relationship with God. We are potential sons and daughters of God, but that potentiality does not become a reality until we love our enemies. So we must love our enemies, because only by loving our enemies can we know God and experience that beauty. Now, the relevance of all this to the crisis of the race issue in America should be apparent. And there can be no permanent solution to the race problem until oppressed men and women develop the capacity to love their enemies. The darkness of racial injustice can only be dispelled by the light of forgiving love. For 3 centuries, blacks have been battered by the iron rod of depression, frustrated by day and bewildered by night with injustice. It's understandable if we are tempted to be bitter, to return hate with hate. But if we do this, the new order we seek will do more than duplicate the old order we replaced. We must, in strength and humility, meet love with love. But many say it's not practical. It's a distant utopia. The real world is cold and hard, and it's dog eat dog. Strength is hitting back. But haven't we tried that practical way too long? Doesn't it always lead to confusion and chaos? There must be another way. This does not mean that we abandon righteous efforts. This does not mean that we don't use every ounce of our effort to rid this nation of injustice. But we cannot relinquish our privilege and our obligation to love. To our bitterest oppressor, to our bitterest opponent, we must say, we will match your capacity to inflict suffering with our capacity to endure. We will match your physical force with soul force. Do to us what you will, and we will continue to love you. Throw us in jail, we will love you. Bomb our home, we will love you. Send your hooded perpetrators into our neighborhoods at the midnight hour. Beat us, leave us half dead, and we will love you. And rest assured, oppressor, we will wear you down with our capacity to love. One day we will win freedom, but not just for ourselves. We will so appeal to your heart and your conscience, oppressor, that we shall win you in the process, and our victory will be a double victory. Love, exemplified in the life of Christ, is the most durable power, the most creative force, the most potent instrument in mankind in a quest for a better world and peace and security. Napoleon Bonaparte, late in his life, was looking back over his career in conquest, and he said, Alexander, Caesar, Charlemagne, and I, we built great empires, but they were built on force. Centuries ago, Jesus started an empire that was built on love, and even to this day, millions would die for him. Who can doubt the truth of those words? Military empires have come and gone. Should America be a military empire? But the empire of Jesus was built solidly and majestically upon the foundation of love, and it still grows. Jesus is eternally right. May we in the 20th and the 21st century follow his words before it's too late. And may we solemnly realize that we shall never be true sons and daughters of our Heavenly Father until we love our enemies and pray for those who persecute us. Dr. King gave a better and longer version of that when he was 29 years old, which is astonishing to me. You can get the full version online. It's beautiful. What he wrote in his speech, he elaborated more in his wonderful way. You can also hear it online. If you want, I can, if you email me, I can link the site. It's worth it. So, I want to transition first by going back to the first 3 weeks, if Vincent doesn't mind. I'm a teacher. I have to do this. They go into my to my room in A107, and there's all these notes and these graphic organizers, and the first thing they do when we say good morning, they just look at the board and see what they've got to conquer that day. Well, there you have it. Now you feel like my students. But you don't have to write it. Vincent has called the first 3 weeks of this revolution. And I took the liberty of defining revolution. Forcible overthrow of a social order in favor of a new social order. And every revolution has a tension between for lack of a better word, between the leaders, be they political, religious, or social, and the great mass of people. Now, the leaders have every advantage of wealth, privilege, and power. And they have an interest. And the interest is status quo, because the status quo is where they got their wealth, privilege, and power. If it's a revolution, the great mass of people have the advantage of numbers. And their interest is change. But there's always this problem for the great mass of people. There are these fault lines of class, or of race, or of religion. And within these fault lines, there are all these smaller divisions. And the more divisions there are, the harder it is for the great mass of people to use their advantage to challenge the leaders. Therefore, the leaders have an interest in division within the great mass of people. It's revolution. That's the dynamic of it. And in history, it's usually been violent. I'm certain that's not what Vincent's asking of us. In week 1, Vincent talked about a new direction. John the Baptist cleared the way. But before he does, he confronts his audience. The ones who come down to be baptized, he says, brood of vipers. And probably more. And then he gives a call to repent, to walk a new direction. To the tax collectors. He says, be honest in your work. Don't cheat the people. To the soldiers, he says, don't intimidate. Don't falsely accuse. And to others, he casts their vision down. Share with those at the bottom, with the poor. Share your tunic, share your food. Week 2, Jesus in Nazareth. By the way, I can't tell you how much I love this story. He returns to Nazareth with great enthusiasm. They escort him to the synagogue. And he's going to give his message. And he says he's been anointed. Because his anointing is to bring good news to the poor. Freedom to the prisoner. Sight to the blind. Freedom to the oppressed. He too confronts. Because when he's questioned, he reminds them, physician, heal thyself. And they escort him up to the edge of a cliff. In the first 2 weeks, John the Baptist is not really talking to them. He's talking here. And he's talking about the divisions. And he's saying, when you deal with your neighbor, do honest work. Treat them justly. Don't cheat them. Don't intimidate. Don't falsely accuse. And by the way, we ought to be paying attention to some of these people who are poor. In the second week, Jesus probably is talking to some religious leaders who are there and those aligned with them in the religious establishment. But his vision is decidedly down. They are talking, hey, let's not forget them. And now we get to week 3. Week 3 is courage. The message is loving your enemy. Dr. King spoke to a black audience in Alabama in 1957. Now, I gave you the historical context at the beginning, but that's the history that makes the history books. I want you for a minute to imagine you're sitting in the Dexter Avenue Baptist Church, and we're all black, because it wasn't integrated. And when you're black, it doesn't go away. You're immediately, it doesn't go away. You walk out the church, you're black. So imagine all of us are walking out the door that day. Dexter Avenue Baptist Church in Montgomery, Alabama. What's the day-to-day experience of those people, those everyday people? Not the ones that make the history book. What's their experience? And the best example of this I got also from a letter from Birmingham jail. Is what it says. He wrote it in jail. He wrote it later, but he describes this, I think, the best I've ever heard. It's also after the first sentence, all one sentence. And to me, it's the most remarkable sentence in the English language. One of them, anyways. He was being asked to wait. Stop protesting, Dr. King. You're causing too much tension. Wait. And that was by allies who were asking him to wait. Here's his answer. Europe. I guess it's easy for some of you to say, wait. But when you have seen vicious mobs lynch your mothers and fathers at will, and drown your sisters and brothers at whim, when you have seen hate-filled policemen curse, kick, brutalize, and even kill your black brothers and sisters with impunity, when you see Negro brothers smothering in an airtight cage of poverty in the midst of affluent society, when you suddenly find your tongue twisted and your speech stammering as you seek to explain to your 6-year-old daughter why she cannot go to the amusement park that she has just seen advertised on television, and you see tears welling up in her little eyes when she is told that Funtown is closed to colored children, and you see the depressing clouds of inferiority begin to form in her little mental sky, when you have to concoct an answer for a 5-year-old son asking, Daddy, why do white people treat colored people so mean? When you take a cross-country drive and find it necessary to sleep night after night in the uncomfortable corners of your car because no motel will accept you. When you are humiliated by day in and day out by nagging signs reading white and color. When your first name becomes nigger and your middle name becomes boy. When your wife and mother are never given the respect of Mrs. When you are harried by day and haunted by night by the fact that you are a Negro living constantly a tiptoe stance, never knowing what to expect next, plagued with the inner fears and the outer resentments, when you are forever fighting the degenerating sense of nobodiness, then you will understand why it is difficult to wait. Imagine that's inside of you. And then Dr. King preaches to you love, not of each other in your suffering, love of the people who cause your suffering, with the hope that your love will transform those who oppressed you. Dr. King's vision is up. I'm going to talk a little bit about what all the division in our society does to me in a little bit, but when it does, I'm such a blessed man because I can go to school and I love my kids. My co-workers are friends. I come to my church and I have friends. I go home and I have a beautiful wife, wonderful children. I have love. And that's good. but it's not enough. It's respite. It's comfort. It's necessary. But it will not transform our society. We have to love our enemy, even if we are the oppressed. So, when you look at this, here are the common elements. John the Baptist, Jesus, Dr. King, all confronted their audience. He shook them up. They all encouraged their audience to repent and walk a new direction. And they all inspire in their audience a new vision, even if it's not accepted, but because God called them to it. Now let me follow Dr. King's example and ask a practical question. What does this mean for us? I mean, we're not in the wilderness with John the Baptist. We're not in Nazareth with Jesus. And we are not, in fact, in the Dexter Avenue Baptist Church with Dr. King. So what exactly does this mean for us? Well, the first thing we have to do is we have to believe that it does mean something to us. We have to believe what Dr. King said at the end of his message. Jesus is eternally right. Therefore, these words have application for us. So I'm going to try to illustrate it in a kind of an odd way, and I'll be very transparent about it. Over winter break, and my teacher friends will appreciate this, you look forward to sleeping. Well, one night I woke up at 4:48. I know because I looked at my phone. I couldn't get back to sleep. It was just this image. It was in my mind. I mean, my eyes were closed, but I saw Warren Area High School gymnasium. That's where I went to high school, West Pennsylvania. I saw it as clear as day. And it's a dodgeball game going on. I'm going, God, jeez. I'm trying to go back to sleep, but it won't go away. Well, if you're not familiar with dodgeball, it's, you know, I know a lot of you are, but there's a line that goes down the middle of the gym, and you know, there's a team on this side and a team on this side, and a coach will whistle, and they run to the middle, they get the balls, usually volleyballs, they run back, and they throw it at each other as hard as they can to try to hit them and get them out. And then they do the same to you, and you either try to catch it or dodge to stay in, hence the name dodgeball. It can get kind of vicious. Well, the game that I saw that morning was violent and one-sided. We'll make you guys decide doing well. I mean, you're creaming these guys. It's ugly. And one of the kids on this side, you know, the outcome's clear. He just stops. He's one of their best players, too. He's holding the ball. Look at Jim. He just holds the ball. And he starts looking. He starts looking over the other side. And he's seeing some of them look humiliated. Some of them look injured. Some of them are curled up in a fetal position. Some of them are still scattering frantically as the ball whizzes by them and hits the bleachers, and the sound echoes in the gym. And then he turns and he looks at his teammates. And they look gleeful and aggressive, and some of them seem to be drooling from their mouth as they throw the next ball. And something hits. And he walks over to the coach. And he says, "Coach, I don't belong in this game." "What? What do you mean you don't belong in this game? I don't want to play." "What do you mean you don't want to play? Get back in there. What are you, a quitter? You a loser? Don't you understand it?" And as the coach starts telling him, explaining to him, the purpose of the game is to win, his voice fades into the background as he turns, crosses over the line, drops the ball, and goes to help some of the kids he had just targeted. Maybe had just hit. And for a moment, the game stops. And that's it. And I couldn't get back to sleep. And I'm going, what is that? And I wrestle with it. And I got out of bed confused. You can't make this up. Next morning, I woke up. It's dark. I look at my phone. It's 4:46. What are you doing to me? I'm on break. And I see the gym again. And it's dodgeball again. And I can't get to sleep. Except this time the game's bigger. And there's lines going everywhere and balls flying everywhere. More lines, more players, balls flying in every direction, more coaches, more yelling, and the players are even more frantic. And as they throw and dodged, it seems like chaos. And right there in the middle of it all is the kid from the first night. And he looks confused. And so I got out of bed, and I felt a little disturbed. And I wrestled with it, and I wrestled with it, and I continue to wrestle with it. Here's the understanding I've come to. I think the first morning was me. When I was in high school, I was a great dodgeball player. I mean, I wasn't good. I was great. First of all, this is not a big target. And I was quick and agile, and I had a great arm. And I could hit people on the other side and make them miss. I was very good, oftentimes the last one in. That wasn't what it was about. As I told you at the beginning, I'm an excellent hater. I have so often in my life lined my enemies up on the other side of the line. Sometimes individuals, sometimes groups. And then I drew my line in anger, betrayal, and envy, and self-righteousness, and pride. And all of them in my life have congealed into a certain kind of prejudice. And then I have hurled some vicious words in their directions. Sometimes to their face, sometimes behind their backs. The first night was me. First morning. The second morning, lines drawn everywhere, balls flying everywhere. That's America. And what is flying all around are words, and sometimes worse. And the teams are almost too many to count. Republican, Democrat, conservative, liberal, libertarian, socialist, native-born American, undocumented alien, illegal alien, policemen, minority, urban communities, traditional marriages, LGBT rights, militia, federal government, gun rights advocates, gun control advocates, business employers, employee unions, pro-life, pro-choice, rich, poor, young, old, Christian, Muslim, Jews, and still today, black, white, and every shade in between. And I probably forgot some. If you want a dodgeball game in America, you don't have to look far. And if you have some hesitation about getting into the game, all you've got to do is turn on the TV or turn on your computer, and within minutes, you will find a political, religious, or media leader that will shake you up like a rooster before a cockfight, because they have an interest in our division. This is the America we live in. It is verbal warfare with hateful words flying in every direction. And sometimes, tragically, the hateful words lead to hateful attacks. And sometimes participants think they are hitting an enemy, and they actually hit a neighbor. To illustrate this, I want to use my classes. I want to tell you about my classes. I'm going to go right up the list from top to bottom. Start first with religion. Of my students, I teach 3 Sikhs, 3 Jain, 4 non-denominational Christians, 4 Protestants, 4 Orthodox Christians from Greece, Egypt, and Russia. Twice on Russia. I teach 7 Buddhists. That's right. There are 7 Buddhists, 3 more than there are non-denominational Christians. There are 11 atheists or agnostic. There are 13 Muslims. There are 17 Hindus. There are 25 Catholics and 49 Jews. Those are my students. And they are of every race, and their ethnic origins reach to every continent on the globe. And they are gay, and they are straight, and they are extroverts and introverts and shy and vulnerable. And when I hear Americans say things that are hurtful about them, it hurts me, because I love them. And when I hear an American who proclaims themselves a Christian say things that hurt them, it hurts me double, because I'm a Christian. And I have to make it make sense to them because I teach American history and the American Constitution. But I'm telling you this, when I hear that diverse population say, our history, my founders, my Constitution, it's beautiful. And I love it. But it's a struggle. That's why this means so much to me. I have to get them to believe in a country that oftentimes diminishes them. So this morning, we have to acknowledge that we, right in the middle of this game, voluntarily, the Christians are right in the middle of the game. At least I know I am. And I'll use myself to illustrate the effect of this. Many times, I have let it be known to one person or a group of people that I'm a Christian. Then later, sometimes in the very same conversation, I will carry that idea. I will carry that identity, Christ's name, right into the game. And in that same conversation, after I said, I'm a Christian, I will line enemies up. I will draw my line, and I will let loose vicious words that are hateful. And I've done it. In social atmospheres, I've done it at work, I've done it here, I've done it at home, before my children, and what I must have taught them. And every time I do it, I feel like I defame my Savior's name. Because He is love, not hate. He is an embrace, not a violent act. He is peace, not war. So, this morning, let's make an agreement. If you're like me, if you pull your Christian identity into that game, let's agree not to. Let's start a revolution with ourselves. To do that, first you have to be honest. You have to be honest, maybe prayerful, and say to yourself, who's my enemy? Who do I say is destroying me? Who do I say is destroying America? Line them up and be honest. Who are they in my mind, in my heart? Second, you have to ask yourself, what do I draw my line in? Is it anger? Is it fear? Is it self-righteousness or pride? Is it prejudice? Third, let's repent. Let's declare that we do not belong in this game. As Christians, as Americans, argue politics, but as Christians, let it go. Let it go. Let's drop the ball. Turn our backs on all those people who encourage us, who encourage our hate, who encourage us to hate, who reinforce our fear, who tell us to play to win. And then let us have the courage to cross over that line, to step right over the fear, to step right over the pride, to step right over the anger, to step right over the hate. And finally, as you approach your enemy, do so with a fresh vision of love. Extend a hand. Practice the art of conversation. Listen as much as you speak. Ask questions more than you explain. And don't lecture. Learn. And maybe, just maybe, if we do this, we will do as King suggests. At worst, we will gain an understanding. And at best, we will destroy an enemy by gaining a friend. Now, if we commit to this, how it builds to a larger society-wide revolution, I don't know. I really don't. Frankly, I think that's God's work. Right now, I'm focused on mine. And I'm encouraging you to focus on yours. I believe if we do that, God will guide us on whatever the next step is. But right now, we just must love our enemies. And it's not for me to tell you which is yours. So we may be His children and experience the beauty of that. I want to finish with my daughter's favorite play, Les Mis. At the end of Les Mis, well, in the middle of Les Mis, there's this song called the People's Song, and it's stirring. If you're familiar with it, you might recognize the words. I'm not going to sing it. Not my wife or my daughter. Do you hear the people singing the song of angry men? It is the music of a people who will not be slaves again. Now, that's not the revolution that we're talking about here, angry men and violent war. But the People's Song, near the end of the play, has a reprise. And it's after all the fighting here on earth is done. And, tragically, to the end of some of their lives. And in the reprise, it's almost sung at the beginning in a ghostly manner. And it goes like this. Do you hear the people sing, lost in the valley of the night? It is the music of a people who are climbing to the light. For the wretched of the earth, there is a flame that never dies. Even the darkest night will end and the sun will rise. We will live again in freedom in the garden of the Lord. We will walk behind the plowshare. We will put away our sword. The chain will be broken, and all men will have their reward. Will you join in our crusade? Will you be strong and stand with me somewhere beyond the barricade? Is there a world you long to see? Do you hear the people sing? Say, do you hear the distant drums? It is the future that they bring when tomorrow comes. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. I want to thank you for your time this morning. Thank you.